So it's been a minute. I haven't posted in a while, a couple of months. Life's gotten a little busy. My day job was taking up a lot of time there for a bit. And being in a long distance marriage when your wife lives in China also takes its toll because I come visit her for about a month at a time here in China. Surprise, I am currently in China. And yeah, it's taken a little bit of my focus away. But I did shoot some content before I left from the US here, and that's what we're gonna talk about. And one of the things we were doing was embarking on a whole maintenance for the roof rack and the KC Highlights light bar racks assembly. Just needs an update and maintenance, right? After being on the truck for nearly 5 years. And in the process of doing that, we discovered that my sunroof wasn't working. And so I took the truck to the dealership naturally to get it checked out. And by the way, I am out of warranty now, being at 75,000 miles. And I discovered that the dealership wants to charge me, I hope you're sitting down, $4,594.39 to replace the entire sunroof assembly. Not fixed, mind you. They are not in the business of fixing sunroofs. They are in the business of replacing them. And they want to charge you an arm and a leg for it. Now, luckily, I have Mr. Nicholas at my disposal, who is more than willing to tackle the project. And we discovered that we could fix this problem for about 60 bucks on Amazon between new bracket assemblies, components, and a tube of sunroof lubricant. So that's what we did. And that's what this vlog's about. So we're gonna go into that. In a future vlog, I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing with the KC Highlights roof rack, which involves replacing all the rib nuts, reassembling. Yeah, that's its own fiasco. If you have an aged truck or you are just sort of in a position where you have to go to the dealer to get all your stuff done, I highly encourage you to look for a really good shop that can just do repairs that's not a dealership, especially if you're out of warranty, because they're just in the business of swapping out parts and making money, man. Yeah, over $4,500 is ridiculous. I mean, come on. So without further ado, let's get into that repair on that sunroof. And we have a Mr. Nicholas in his natural habitat. And we have a broken sunroof.
Yep.
What's the synopsis, Mr. Nick?
Well, as anybody who's ever owned one of these Fords can tell you, or at least if you do a very quick Google search, the tracks on the sunroof are made out of plastic, and yeah.
Well, this is a track for a sunroof, and it's broken. I've got shards of plastic as well, and we have to replace it. Funny enough, the dealership quoted me $4,500 to replace the sunroof. I think we can get away with doing that a little cheaper, Nick.
I think so.
And random shards of plastic broken off. We have to replace these. Hopefully get this sucker back to working order. Sunroof off truck. So this is what we have to do this job, and this is the component that usually fails on those sunroofs. Now, I guess the motor can fail, which would be a larger expense, but predominantly the motor, in my situation at least, the motor was fine. It was this plastic bits that came apart, and honestly, routine maintenance, you got to do it. I think part of the reason this failed is I hardly used my sunroof, and I wasn't lubing it often enough, so it eventually just did fail. But I know this happens quite frequently. I've seen other people with this problem. But anyway, $4,500 from the dealership. They wanted to replace the whole sunroof assembly, and it's just not necessary. So here we go. And I'll put the part number in the description below for this and where I found it. And you can go get the original Ford part numbers if you want to do that, or probably pay a little extra, or you could just go hunt on Amazon and find the same product that I found.
So a lot of people talk about replacing these, but not a lot of people talk about why they replace them. So what this is this is a piece of metal that has plastic actually molded over the top of it. These little pins that align things, these are the slides for the front that keep it all going in the right direction. This one actually just attaches somewhere else. And this little channel is what makes it move up and down. This is literally where the motor attaches. We had brakes in the plastic here that was stopping the motor from moving, and these had started to break and were jammed, and these were completely stuck because they hadn't been lubed in forever, and also just this happens. But I will tell people, don't be afraid to use a little bit of force. I ended up using a screwdriver on this spot and a hammer to gently tap it backwards to get it moving enough that I could get the old pieces out. The new pieces, once they're lubed, should slide really smooth. The rails are out. The actual rails go in and hook to that little pin. That's what we were talking about earlier. This is a little wind guide thing. And if you look around in here, that's Baja and Southern Oregon and Arizona, Nevada, California, Utah, God knows where else. All of this crap gets up in here. So this is your actual sunroof drain, literally right here in the corner, directly where my pinky's pointing, right there. It's full of dirt. It's gonna be full of dirt. Sunroofs aren't sealed. They just have a gutter. People forget that. Your roof isn't sealed. It has a gutter. And these things drain. And all of the dirt that comes down on top of your car goes into these little channels. And I mean, you can see on the corner closer to Brad, that's a lot of dirt. It's a lot of stuff. If you clean these regularly, your car will not have sunroof drain problems. You will not end up with water inside your car every time it rains.
This truck is a little extreme.
Yeah, this is an extreme case. I will state this. But to be brutally honest, as an auto mechanic, I do this for a living. You would not believe the number of cars that come in as soon as rainy season starts. I've got 4 right now that I have to redo the sunroofs on. And by redo, it's this exact job. I just do it over and over.
Let me correct that for a second. 5.
Well,
No, 5.
yeah, 5. But one of them I don't have to bring to the shop. I get to come here and Brad feeds me. So at this point, I've run the motor backwards and got the mechanism all the way in the back so I can clean out this. And literally all I'm using is a microfiber cloth and some house cleaner and just kind of sticking it in there and cleaning out all of the goo and slime and nasty bits. But to prove a point that Ford said this was bad motors and a broken frame, Brad, if you will focus down here, you'll see a nice little carriage coming our way. It's like Mr. Rogers, but different. Smooth like butter. There is a reason I bought the really expensive lube. This stuff was like, I think 20 bucks for a little tiny tube. This tube is gonna last Brad probably 5 years. Since you only use it once a year, and a little bit goes a long ways. This particular company, Chemkurs or something like that, it's German, they make the lubricants for all of the high-end European cars. That's where I learned about this stuff. And I started buying this rather than going to Mercedes or BMW and spending $65 for the same tube. So now for rebuilding, I'm gonna be using the lube on the bottom side of these, the top side of these, all the way around these little guys. And the part that people miss, this pin, and most importantly, inside here. And when you're lubricating, if you ever do services on these things, there's a little accordion piece that goes over this we'll show later in a flashback or something. Pop the accordion off. Just lubricate around this little joint. That's all. This is what goes bad. And this literally just clicks in. Boop. That movement right there along this track is what moves your sunroof up and down, as you can see. That's what breaks.
And here we are by broad daylight because we had to remove the headliner of the truck to reset the sunroof because it's not getting into position, but we do have the rails fixed. It's a little bit of an ordeal, as you can see behind me, because you have to, well, I'll just have Nick tell you what you have to do to get the headliner out, to fix the sunroof.
Fun times at the OK Corral. The issue is the motor is basically one step behind. When it should be all the way closed and forward, it's 2/3 back. The next step forward would be lifted, and that actually closes it, but doesn't lift it far enough. So we have to take the motor out and re-clock it. Basically, I have to move everything manually. Fun part, the motor's in the back. It is, follow me, hiding right up here, which you can't really see because there's a bunch of headliner in the way. But what you can see, although once the camera adjusts for lighting, is you have to take everything down. You also have to take literally the step plates out, because you have to go from the bottom up on all of the trim to get it out, so we can pull this headliner so I can get to the motor that's back here that Ford decided not to put an access panel for. So the second reason we're doing it this way, unfortunately, my very nice Snap-on brand scanner went walkabout. And I now have an Autel, which is a very good scanner, don't get me wrong. Nothing against Autel, the company, but it is not allowing me to do what I could do with a different scanner because of the software licensing for all of these different companies and different scanners. You almost need 2 or 3 of them in a shop to do everything. And the Autel is great for German cars, but does not allow me to have the motor manually go forward more and reset where it thinks the stops are. So if I had a Ford scanner or my Snap-on, we wouldn't be doing this, but we don't, so here we are. So you'll notice something fun, bungee cords. To get the trim for the middle column out of here, you have to take the seat belts out. And for multiple reasons, among them I'm lazy and I don't like messing with pyrotechnics, because these seat belts have a pyrotechnic charge. You can literally see it right here. That's an explosive. That's what makes your seat belts safe. All modern seat belts have them. I don't like playing with those. Explosives bad in cars. So I came up with the clever solution of just bungee cording the trim pieces out of the way so we won't break them or run into them in other spots. So if you're doing this, helpful tip. So conundrum number 7, or 12, or whatever number we're on. Back seats. 60-40 split is awesome, because this side I can just pull and drop down so I can get access to this trim panel that has to come out. Unfortunately, that's the 40 side. The 60 side, you have to have a special tool. Looks kind of like a Slim Jim. You can hook it around back and pull on a little lever that's hiding in there somewhere. So we're gonna have to figure a workaround.
This is what it looks when looks like when the headliner's out.
No more glass. Headliner's down. Motor's disconnected, which means now, originally I was going to run the motor itself and reset it, but to make sure both sides are perfect, I'm just going to manually push this little bugger forward. Get it into the up position, which is where the motor thinks it is now, bolt the glass in, and then try. See what we got. Yeah, this will work. All right. So what we have here is the motor. They're actually the exact same motor for the sunshade, which is this motor, and the sunroof, which is this guy. They're on 2 different sets of little tracks, and they kind of look like train tracks in here. Literally what they are is, they are a, oh good, Ford put a metal gear, often it's plastic, little geared tooth, and it is a cable with a spiral wound wire around it that acts like an Acme screw. And by running the motor, it just pushes the cable one direction or the other. Well, our motor was in the wrong place. It thought that it only had so many rotations one way and so many rotations the other. Well, unfortunately, it didn't know where it should have been. So we had to take it down, manually set the sunroof to where the motor thinks it is, and then do all this over again. Normally on a motor like this, you could just go in behind and hook up a couple of jumpers, and one's positive, one's ground, and turn the motor left or forward or backward, and move the thing as you want. Well, this is a digitally controlled motor. There's way too many wires. It has to be controlled by a CAN bus signal. Again, don't have the scanner for that. So, theoretically, this should do it. The motor doesn't have, there's no electric stop to tell it when to stop. It's called a stepper motor. There literally, it counts how many rotations it goes in one way or the other, and it's programmed from the factory that it only goes so many turns left and so many turns right. We were just too many turns off in the wrong direction because the motor got reset without the sunroof being reset. So now we mount it up and see what it does. So in our ultra low clearance mode, we were in this position, which is up. But the little spikes were all the way back here, which is set for where it goes lower. So that should be normal height. Now that we know the motor works, glass is back in. It's loose, so we can move it around and get it aligned. I've also loosened the back glass, so we can move it around and get it aligned. What I've done here is grabbed one of Brad's cards, and in the Ultimate Flex, it's health insurance. Like, people have health insurance? What the hell?
Yeah, it's my health insurance card. What can I say?
Yeah.
It's the health of my truck.
Yeah. And I'm basically, this seems silly, but I'm trying to make sure that there's just a small gap between these two windows, that they're not binding up. So that when I set these glass in place, because I still got to raise this one a little bit in the front and raise this one a little bit in the front as well. But I want to make sure that this gap is enough that the windows will move smoothly and they won't jam again. So that's why I loosened both of them, and I'm just using blank brand insurance health card.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry, I figured I'd cover your information on that. But yeah, now we just adjust the front up a little bit and literally just push and kind of settle where you want it. I want it pretty close to level, maybe just a touch under. And then you just go inside and tighten up the T25/8 mils. After a final adjustment, I took the motor back down and moved the pegs back a little bit to lift this higher and make it sit a little better. One last try and see what she does. Okay, that's good. Perfect. Come on, play nice. There we go. So that's all the way forward. Lock that into position. Now, it'll stop halfway. Boop. Guess what we have? Working sunroof, kids. Bye-bye.